here.
We're actually we're a completely remote organization at Right to Start in America, the Entrepreneurial, but we're on our quarterly team retreat and we're together in Philly. And so Morgan and I are like actually right next to each other on Zoom. Okay, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. I'm Kim Lane. I'm the Executive Director of America, the Entrepreneurial, and I'm the founding COO of Right to Start. I'm going to ground us quickly in why we're here today, and then we'll get into this month's call to action. So, America the Entrepreneurial is a national campaign co-chaired by John Bridgeland and Victor Wong. We started this effort because we're in a once in a generation moment in America right now. As you all know, America turns 250 years old this year, which we at Right to Start America the Entrepreneurial called America's 250th startup birthday. So we're leveraging this moment to restore entrepreneurship to the heart of the American story. And this is an important moment for entrepreneurs. It's an important time in America because entrepreneurship is not just a side issue. It actually creates the majority of net new jobs in this country. But right now, 62% of Americans have a dream business in mind, and only 2% start their business. We want to change that. So with America the Entrepreneurial, we've actually built an action campaign where people can take action and actually take real steps to make it easier for people to start and grow their own businesses. The really, really good news is that across the country, through America the Entrepreneurial, people are stepping up to take action and it's working. So I'm going to go over some of our stats for the last few months. In March, our call to action and I should say too, every single month is kind of like a mini campaign for America the Entrepreneurial. We have a call to action for the entire country, so we all have the same thing we're going after. We have one goal. We're all marching to the beat of the same drum. So March, ask your governor to sign the compact. Our goal was to have letters sent to governors in 25 different states asking them to sign the governor's compact on entrepreneurship. In 1 month, we had over 140 letters sent across the country, across 33 states. So in the map, the darker blue states and the lighter blue are all states where letters were sent. So it was an amazing outpouring of support, 140 letters sent. In April, we took the momentum and went to the local level. So our April call to action was ask your mayor to join as a founding mayor of America the Entrepreneurial. Our goal was to have 50 mayors invited to the campaign last month. And in 1 month, we had over 780 letters sent to local officials asking them to join America the Entrepreneurial. 54 mayors were formally invited across 23 states. So people are actually showing up, and many of those are you here on the call. So I just wanted to say thank you so much. This work is actually, we're actually changing the country together. Because of these asks and these letters, we have had governors signing the compact. We've had mayors signing up and taking action, issuing proclamations in their cities. Like this is actually, we're making a difference together, and we're so thrilled to be doing this with you. So now in May, we're shifting our focus. This is a key moment this month to bring entrepreneurs' voices to the forefront. So the last 2 months were about sending letters to governors and asking mayors to join. Now we want to really highlight the entrepreneurs at the core of what we're doing here. So our May call to action is 250 entrepreneurs, 25 days, and one national letter. And what we mean by that is that we're asking 250 entrepreneurs to add their voice and their story to a public letter in support of the governor's compact on entrepreneurship. This is important because the compact is a governor's way to say they prioritize entrepreneurs in their state. So we've talked about the compact many times. As you all know, we have this kind of once in a generation moment where governors have the opportunity to sign a compact and actually say, I care about entrepreneurs. I want to do something to prioritize them in my state. We need to get over 40 governor signatures on the compact by July. So we had this kind of short time frame, and we want to make sure that governors are hearing from entrepreneurs themselves for why this is important to them. This is entrepreneurs' chance to let their voices and their stories be heard by their governor and to tell their governor what it actually looks like to take a risk, to bet on a dream, to build something from nothing, and to build something from nothing and build something of their own. We often talk about entrepreneurs and the importance of entrepreneurs, but we want to take a moment and just really hone in on it is really hard to be an entrepreneur, and it's major guts to be an entrepreneur and tons of risk. And I think sometimes if we're not telling those stories, people forget how hard it is. And yet entrepreneurs create the majority of new jobs in this country. So we want to bring entrepreneurs' voices together. And when those voices come together at scale, leaders do listen. So on that note, I'm thrilled to welcome Brad Fallon to the call. Brad is the Assistant Secretary for Business Development for the Maryland Department of Housing and Community Development. And he formerly worked in Governor Moore's office in Maryland. Governor Moore is the incoming chair of the National Governors Association, which is the association that is issuing this compact for governors. And Governor Moore has already signed the compact. So we're thrilled to have you here, Brad. And just to start us off, given your experience working closely with Governor Moore, who has already signed the compact, and he's actively advancing entrepreneurship in Maryland through things like expanding access to capital through SSBCI programs, working to reduce barriers through licensing and permitting reform, which I think, Brad, you were closely associated with. Can you tell us what gets a governor's attention?
Yeah, thanks so much, Kim. Thanks for having me. I love the energy generally of the
I can't
event.
hear you, Brad. I don't, is it on my end? Is your speaker on?
Can nobody hear me?
We're good.
We're good? Okay. Thanks so much for having me. Yeah, to your question, Kim, what gets the governor moving is that it is the job of the state, and this is very much his philosophy, but all sorts of public officials that I've worked with philosophy, that the state and the economic kind of system, our business community, should be working hand in hand. Because that's how we expand economic opportunity for those in the state. They often, I think, get thought of as kind of oil and water and that they don't completely mix and that folks don't talk to each other. But if you don't, policy gets made with or without you, right? And so folks bringing them lived experiences, folks come to me or the governor and say, this is what it's like to start up a business in the state. This is the challenges that I'm facing, and here's how you can help. Ears perk up. Folks in public life want to be helpful. And sometimes it's a dangerous thing if they're not hearing from the right folks. So advocacy like this is so important to understand what is the real experience, where's the government's role in that, and how can we be helpful in things like securing resources.
Great. Thank you, Brad. So, can you hone in a little bit more on that? Like, if people don't share their stories, the policies will get made without their stories at the forefront.
Yeah, it happens all the time, right? In my work, like Kim, like you mentioned, I'm Assistant Secretary for Business Development here at the Department of Housing and Community Development. Before that, I worked directly for the governor, kind of as a fancy title, but I was a lobbyist and policy lead, doing everything from like seed funding for tech businesses to permitting and licensing reform and kind of everything in between. I don't have a business degree, and I definitely have not ran a business, right? Without kind of like directly hearing from folks and working with folks, we're just going to continue to try to move the ball forward, but it's probably going to be misguided. There
Mm,
was an example a few years ago where the state looked to partner with universities to help tech companies that were spinning out of research from the university. And the way that the legislature decided to do it was by providing a tax credit for the real estate that those small companies might be purchasing. They had no idea. None of these small, like student-led tech startups were buying real estate, right? It did nothing. So we ended up transitioning that later into something more useful. But that only happened because folks started scratching their head and saying, why is no one using this great program that we put resources behind? The kind of wheel keeps turning. We need folks at the table that have a mind towards what is an aggregate benefit here? What stories can I share that shed some light into what would really make this an effective policy?
great. Thank you. And then on the actual stories, I mean, I'm guessing not all stories are alike to actually change minds in terms of drafting policy. What are the actual things that made you go like, huh, we should consider that? Or what made your ears perk up when you would hear from constituents?
It's so interesting. It is always the things you don't expect. I think often when government approaches it, they always think in dollars and cents, which is always great. We love pushing out resources and helping folks access capital. But I think what we hear more than anything is regulatory concerns, right? It's how expensive was that business license, or how
Mhm.
long did it take? What were the requirements on this form before I had site control for some building I was looking to move into? It's those kind of lived experiences that you kind of have to process through and live through in order to find where the faults are. So it's really kind of the non-sexy items, right? It is the, hey, this application form took weeks and then I, left out a check box and now I'm restarting. It's those sort of things that we have to chase down. I think folks are hesitant sometimes because they feel this is too small of an issue. I can't run this up the chain. People aren't going to care. And I cannot lean in enough that that is not the case. When public officials can help, they want to. And the smaller the issue is, the easier it is to tackle it.
Great. That's fantastic. So can you talk a little bit about letters, voices shared at scale, which is around our call to action for this month is this one letter, 250 entrepreneur voices. Why would that matter?
Yeah, and I think it's two-tiered, right? I think generally showing that there is real energy around this and real initiative around a entrepreneurial spirit, a right to start in America, and what it means for economic opportunity spread among entrepreneurs and small business owners that aren't the typical kind of commercial class that I think many think of. But more important than just kind of the general energy is the local advocacy. Always, if we were in the governor's office and we received a letter from someone in Missouri, thank you for writing in, but that's not necessarily going to drive the policy in our states. When we get a letter from the restaurant that we all go to on Friday nights saying this is an issue that we're having, our ears perk up really quick,
Hmm.
right? And so really it's those local advocacy networks. Everybody that runs a small business is an integral part of their community. There's no other way to cut it. And they have more power, I think, in their voice than they often realize. It's targeting the decision makers at their local level, state level, and federal level that I've found really moves the ball forward.
Fantastic. And then can you kind of touch on that a little bit more too? If I know you're not in the governor's office anymore, but if you could kind of rewind time and you were to receive a letter like this with an entrepreneur saying this is an issue or this is a barrier, or even, I don't know if you like consider successes too, but like, look, I just created 15 new jobs in this community. What do you do with that information?
Yeah, it's a mix, right? I think for individual issues, sometimes they're things that can just be addressed, right? Government is a very big machine and there are lots of cogs and sometimes they get stuck. So sometimes we receive outreach and it's just, you know what, we can resolve that. That's not a policy change. And folks can jump on it. I have found that governors and senators tend to be very, very good with those sorts of constituent requests. But beyond that, if we receive something that's a policy issue, we'll want to learn more. I cannot tell you how much even very large scale policy has come out from a single letter or one person reaching out and saying, here's an issue I'm having. I think this is ridiculous. And I don't think this is what the state had in mind in setting up this program or regulatory scheme. Sometimes we need more evidence, right? So we will be able to put together little town halls or roundtables from others in the industry. Chambers of commerce are always a great way to hear from folks, but it immediately prompts a degree of action as soon as you're hearing from somebody that can speak to that lived experience.
Great. Brad, can you speak to that in your own experience working on licensing and permitting reform?
Yes, that talking about non-sexy items, permitting and licensing reform is something that I love. We were a few years ago, Governor Moore passed legislation called the Transparent Government Act that created the Government Efficiency Commission, which was branding before the most recent Department of Government Efficiency, that really focused in on how do we streamline permitting and licensing. That is a massive, massive issue. We had never actually counted up how many permits and licenses the states issues, as it looks like many states haven't. It's over 1,000. And we had to really dig down into the individual factors that create either frustration or burden with cost or time that goes into each. We ended up really fine-tuning that by conversations with the business community, particularly those that we saw high impact for. We have a significant housing crisis in Maryland, a significant shortage like a lot of the country. We needed to make sure that our regulatory system was conducive to building more housing that our people need. So we really dug in on things like highway access permits, very fun things like that, and did roundtables, right? It met with the individual programmatic staff who often were the first in line to say, here are the issues with the current policy, but also those who have experienced it. From there, we created a number of policies, one of which that I'm very proud of is the Maryland Coordinated Permitting Review Council, which is housed at our Department of Planning, that will sponsor a project. Say it's a 100-unit apartment building coming into Baltimore. We will work with all of the local and state entities that need to provide some degree of permitting and licensing along that line and kind of work to be the coalescer and coordinator throughout that process. Make sure there's data sharing so that folks aren't filling out the same form for every permanent license they need, that there's effective communication about how long this process is going to take, and somebody holding both the government and the project sponsor to account on those timelines.
Great. Thank you, Brad. Last question. Um, Based on your experience in Maryland, what does it look like? Why is it important for a state to prioritize entrepreneurship? And the basis of this question is, why is this an important action for people to take to get their governor, ask their governor to sign this compact?
Yeah, I mean, I think it boils down to what I was mentioning before. The small business community in particular is what weaves together our social fabric. There is no community without the folks that bring it together. We like to say here often in the economic development lens that Maryland homes and housing is where Maryland jobs go to sleep at night, right? There is a very broad kind of community development aspect to the entrepreneurship of all business types. Without government working and understanding business and business working with and understanding government, we can't offer the type of economic opportunity that I think folks, regardless of political affiliation, regardless of age or income level, want to see in society. And so we can often have a very nonpartisan conversation about how do we make sure that these two major entities or groups in society are working together, both
Mhm.
for the benefit of the communities and for individual economic opportunity.
Great. Thank you, Brad. Thanks for everything you're doing for entrepreneurs in Maryland.
Thanks so much for having me.
And now we're going to hear from an entrepreneur. Jannae Gammage is the CEO of Cypher and knows full well that the road to entrepreneurship is not easy. Um, Jannae, can you tell us? And I should just say, Jannae has also taken real action through America the Entrepreneurial. This is exactly, we're thrilled, Jannae, to be advocating for you and others who are making their dreams come true. And thank you for also advocating as an entrepreneur yourself. But
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about yourself, your origin story. Why are you an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I think that it was pretty evident to my parents that being a long-term student and professional probably wasn't going to be the path for me. And so they introduced me to entrepreneurship actually at age 14. So that is when I started my first business. And I won't say my age, but it was over 25 years ago. And from there, I've continued to grow into entrepreneurship and fell in love with it over the course of my life and started many businesses. Some of them were total duds, and then some of them were what some would deem very successful. I've had Main Street businesses, one of which I was able to successfully exit and sell to a large franchise. I've also had a previous tech company outside of the one that I'm running now, which I was able to exit and sell as well. And then so this one is really focused on helping entrepreneurs. One of the barriers post-COVID, I was brought in to essentially help connect the dots between lenders and small businesses as they were navigating this newfound reality and trying to stay alive. And a lot of people actually just saying that, I think a lot of people are like, that was an irregular time. But for small businesses, I think we're always trying to stay alive. Like that is what we're built for and how we're manufactured to essentially thrive at this point. But that is the origin story of my current company. I saw a lot of problems with that, and I think COVID it just introduced so many things that needed to be fixed structurally. And I thought, why not me? Which is, I think, what every entrepreneur thinks when they start a business, right? Why not me?
I love that. Um,
Yeah.
we often talk at Right to Start about how entrepreneurs die the death of a thousand cuts. There are so many little things along the way. Talk
Yep.
about, any barriers that you have faced in your journey. I'm assuming that it hasn't been a cakewalk the whole time.
Absolutely not. Again, manufactured to thrive in these environments is the thing and the I think the landmark of any entrepreneur. Um, Barrier number one will always be capital. Especially as a tech founder, especially as a what someone would deem an underrepresented tech founder. Just being able to navigate those different spaces and convince people to give you money, whether it's a customer, whether it's an investor, whether it's a partner, is always a barrier. It's hard. So barrier might be the wrong word. It's just very hard. Um, I wouldn't say that it's impossible. Also, yeah, navigating resources. Kansas City, which is where I am, is actually good about providing resources for entrepreneurs. But I've run businesses in plenty of ecosystems where it was a resource desert. You maybe have a small business office or SBDC, and that's all you have. There's no real programming. There's no real people who are collaborating to support entrepreneurs. So that becomes a real barrier when you can't look around you in your environment to find help to support you in your business. There's a lot of knowledge gaps as a new business owner. There's just things you don't understand or know that require outside perspective and outside resources to get to the next milestone. So that was a barrier when I was outside of Kansas City for sure.
And why America the Entrepreneurial, I mean, your time is so limited. You're running a company. I think you mentioned that you mentor like 15 to 20 small businesses a week. Did you say a week?
A
And
month, a
a
month.
month.
I wish I had enough time to do that many, but yeah.
So you mentor small businesses, you're running your own tech company, um, and you're taking action through America the Entrepreneurial. Why are you taking the time? Why is this important to you?
A couple of things. One, I wholeheartedly believe in entrepreneurship. It's changed the trajectory of my life, and I know that it has done the same for a lot of other entrepreneurs like me. Two, through this organization, so my last tech company, before I started it, I was actually working in an organization that, if I were to start my company and tell them, I would be violating a non-compete. And you guys actually lobbied and got the bill passed where non-competes couldn't be used. And I think at that point, secretly running the business already, and not being vocal about it, not advertising, or exposing myself. And I can remember my co-founder like walking in the office and he's like, "Have you seen this? Like the non-compete thing is gone. Like we don't have to worry about this. We can start talking about it." And we did. And we were able to build that company into an exit. And so that essentially changed the trajectory for us as well. And so it's really important to me to give back in that way because now I understand just how important and um, how impactful just something that feels simple can be for a huge population of people.
So for you, basically a policy change led to your ability to start and scale and ultimately sell a company.
Yeah, in so many other words, yeah, put simply.
So talk about this moment. We have this kind of monthly moment with governors right now, from now until July, where we have an opportunity to ask governors to prioritize entrepreneurs. If you
Hmm.
could speak directly to your governor, what would you want them to know about why entrepreneurship is important in your state?
Economic mobility for sure. I think a lot of times we see it as a budget line item when we're in meetings. That's what entrepreneurship shows up as in a meeting, and it's hard to see the impact when you're having to make decisions around where money goes and where support goes in that moment. And so I think it's a mindset shift on how states and governments are approaching the entrepreneur support, like as more of an investment than it is a line item.
Mhm.
If that shift happens, then it becomes, the more money I take away from entrepreneurship in this line item, the more money I actually lose, the more economic mobility I actually lose, the more the things that I ran on my campaign, the platform that I spoke about, um, ceases to be true. So that is like I think the primary message I would communicate is that like we're more than a line item. There's so much opportunity and impact that comes from supporting entrepreneurship. And not that other things aren't important, but it should always be top of list.
100%.
Mhm.
Okay, and last question. We want everyone here to walk away with the call to action of asking entrepreneurs to sign on to this letter. Why would you tell them that this is important? I mean, entrepreneurs are building America. Why should they ask their entrepreneurs in their networks to sign the letter?
Um, it goes back to what Brad said earlier. Like I think we may think we don't have a voice, but we absolutely do. But it takes a collective in order to be a powerful voice and a loud voice, right? And if you want people to listen like that, just human psychology, you need collective support and collaboration in order to push things across the finish line. So the more we have that, the more successful we can become. And the less we have, the harder we have to work to be heard.
Great. Thank you so much, Jannae.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Okay, so now the question is how do you take part in this? So I'm going to pass it over. I know we're almost at time. I'm going to pass it over to my colleague Morgan to go over our tool for taking action.
There we go. Making sure that we don't have an echo. Perfect. So we are this month using change.org as our online petition gathering software. If you're not familiar with Change, it's really, really easy to go on and participate in any campaign around the world. But we will be, of course, asking you to sign on to this letter. So we might be having an echo. But over on the left-hand side, you can see the actual letter language. If you would like to read it, it of course is available on Change as well. And then over on the right-hand side is all you have to complete in order to do this. So just first name, last name, email, where you're located. We are also asking people to just drop a 2 to 3 sentence description of what entrepreneurship means to them. I will drop the link to the Change petition in the chat. And you can also find that URL down below. But for our partners on the call, as part of your follow-up materials for today, you will get a toolkit that you can use to share the petition with your network. So it will include anything from a personal email to newsletter language, social graphics, and some talking points that you can use to explain to your network why this is valuable for them. So Kim, back over to you.
And Morgan, just to quickly address a question in the chat, how can you talk about how we'll use these stories in our storytelling contest?
Oh, that's an amazing question. So, for the storytelling contest, for those of you that don't know, it opened just a few months ago, and we're asking people to submit why entrepreneurship is important to them. It's a little bit more of a robust submission while still being lower barrier. But for the purpose of this petition, it's really about specifically signing on to a letter to share their support for the compact on entrepreneurship. So there is no grand prize tied to signing the letter, though we do think the grand prize is getting your governor to sign the compact. But for the storytelling contest, that will be like an official contest that people will go through. We will be inviting all of the entrepreneurs that sign the letter to participate in the contest so that we can make sure that their story is shared there as well.
Great. Yeah. So thank you for the question. So we want to collect entrepreneur stories for this letter, specifically related to the governor's compact on entrepreneurship. We do, yes, Robin, have a storytelling contest that we also are accepting submissions for as well. Okay, so that's this month's call to action. It just takes 2 minutes. The goal is 250 entrepreneur stories in 25 days. One message, one letter that we will send to governors around the country. And the action is to click the link, add your name, and share your entrepreneurial story. Together, we can build a more entrepreneurial America, one story, one dream, one entrepreneur at a time. We've already had so much momentum, over 800 plus letters and actions taken in the last 3 months, and we're thrilled about this momentum, and we're going to keep it going in May. Thanks, everybody.